Hello and welcome to Zero Hanger TV for this week. We are wrapping up a massive second week of the AFL Finals, and I'm joined by AFL reporter Jack Jovanovski. Welcome, Jack.
Phoenix.
So we'll talk about the first game. Obviously, the D's lost a close one to the Blues, and Jack, you covered the game.
Yep.
What was your biggest takeaway from that game?
The Blues, to be honest. Sam Walsh was huge. He had 34 and 2 goals. They didn't need that much out of Charlie Curnow, who was really well held by Stephen May. Few talking points for the D's though. Obviously, Grundy not selected. We knew that going in. The interesting call though was Josh Saki being selected as the sub. He wasn't used, which sort of, it's an interesting one for sure. There's been a lot of talk back about it. Obviously, Carlton got much more use out of their sub, Ollie Hollands, so it was a bit of a more advantage there. So really odd call for the Demons. Obviously, we also saw the MRO case against Keziah Pickett. He's been offered a one-game ban, so it doesn't look like the D's will challenge that. So he'll probably miss the first game of round one next season.
Yeah, so just going back to the Shaki thing, I think something that does come into play, obviously, is that Grundy looks like he's on the move. So that might be the talking point, even though they did trial a lot with Grundy throughout the year, and obviously he was in and out of the team and it proved not to work. But they did re-sign Shaki recently, which is probably why he got the nod over Grundy. But to not use him in that last quarter in the game at all was very confusing for D's fans.
Still very odd because he's only played the 2 games this entire season, and one of those was as the sub. So obviously, even though his future at Melbourne is cemented, unlike Grundy, who is almost a certainty to go to Sydney, still an odd call in the end. And obviously getting no use out of him was really detrimental to their cause.
Yeah, and of course, obviously the other big talking point was the inaccuracy of Melbourne. Kicking 9-17 in a game is just, not really worthy of a win, to be perfectly honest. But I'm past it. I'm over it. Actually, I lied. I thought I was over it, and then we rewatched the last quarter, and I'm not over it. So congratulations to the Blues, though. Like a lot of big talking points. So they're coming up against Brisbane at the Gabba now. So who's your pick there?
I still think Brisbane, they're just in really hot form. Obviously, they smashed Port. I think they're in a pretty good spot to go again. They might be forced into a change on Thursday with Jack Payne potentially being an exclusion. We'll see how that pans out. But I'd still go with the Lions, I think. But obviously, again, the Demons, they rue their missed opportunities. They did against Collingwood in week 1. Really the same thing again against the Blues. And straight sets.
Yep, absolutely. Well, let's move on from that game. So to another straight sets exit. So Port losing to the Giants at home.
Yeah, pretty shocking. I mean, I did pick the Giants.
Yeah.
You didn't.
I did not.
I had the faith, but no, Port really poor in week 1 against the Lions, as we said, and then they couldn't really back it up against the Giants either. Then it sort of feeds into the whole conversation about Ken Hinkley being re-signed to 2-year deal. Was it a bit too early? Mm-hmm. There are going to be all those sorts of questions throughout the entire offseason for them, and they've got plenty of work to do as well in terms of their list management. They've got 3 guys they're looking to bring in, obviously Zerk, Thatcher, Radigalia, and Sweet. So they've got their hands full. So their priorities officially turn to list management.
Yep, absolutely. And we also had best on ground for Giants. Who's your pick?
Hard to go past Cornelio, 2 goals, 30 possessions. So he was really strong. Jesse Hogan kicked 5, could kick more. But yeah, all Giants in the voting this week. But Cornelio was the best. Yeah,
but I think a lot of fans, I'm all on board the Orange Tsunami train, whatever you want to call it, especially for Hogan. So they come up against Collingwood in the prelim. So who's your tip there?
Yeah, that's again really tough for the Giants. Obviously, we know how good they've been on the road this year. They win again on the road against Port. I'm not so certain they can do it against the Pies. Obviously, they won at the Gene week 1 against the Saints, but the Pies are a much more formidable opponent. So I'm going to go Collingwood.
Yeah, and it looks like Dacos is also going to be coming back in. So my tip is also the Pies, but my heart says Giants, please. I would much rather the Giants win. So that wraps it up for this week's episode of Zero Hanger TV. Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Phoenix.
And don't forget, you can catch all the latest AFL news at zerohanger.com.